You're sitting in a perfectly quiet room, holding a stack of bound paper. Suddenly, the door kicks open. Someone rips the pages from your hands, shreds them into confetti, and sets the pile on fire, all while looking you dead in the eye and saying, "You're welcome." It sounds absurd. It sounds like a paranoid fever dream. But this exact impulse, the obsessive need to control what enters your brain, is one of the oldest and most universal human traditions. Consider this reality. We are talking about the systematic suppression of literature. A comprehensive analysis reveals that across global jurisdictions, authorities don't just ban books for the fun of it, they are terrified. And they are typically driven by 5 very specific, very human anxieties: political subversion, religious blasphemy, sexual obscenity, the promotion of criminal behavior, and the challenging of established social hierarchies. Moving to the core of this fear, the fragile house of cards. Imagine you spend decades building a massive, intricate house of cards. You're the king of the castle. Then, some guy walks in, points at the bottom row, and whispers, "Hey, isn't that just a 2 of clubs?" That whisper is political subversion. Governments frequently ban literature that threatens the prevailing political order or exposes the failures of the state. If you are a totalitarian regime, allegory is your worst enemy. Take George Orwell's Animal Farm. It's a satire of the Russian Revolution and Stalinism. On the surface, it simply depicts pigs rising to power and becoming the new oppressors. But the Soviet Union and other communist nations weren't fooled. They banned it for mocking their leadership. Orwell struck again with 1984, portraying a superstate named Oceania, ruled by Big Brother through constant surveillance and thought control. The Soviet regime banned this too, recognizing it as a direct criticism of Stalin's rule. Looking back in time, we see a distinct pattern. But it isn't just modern totalitarianism that gets touchy. Thomas Paine's The Rights of Man defended the French Revolution, arguing that revolution is fully justified if a government fails its people. The UK's response? They banned it for inciting republicanism and challenging the monarchy. Even economic systems are fragile. Capitalism and commerce have their own glass jaws. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle famously led to US food safety laws, but its socialist messaging got it banned in several countries. It was even burned in Nazi Germany and targeted as pro-communist during the US McCarthy era. Similarly, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath was banned by some for its un-American criticism of capitalism during the Great Depression. Some perceived it as having communist leanings, and astoundingly, even Dr. Seuss isn't safe. The Lorax was challenged by logging companies and banned in some California schools. Why? For being anti-business and portraying business owners specifically, the Onceler as greedy villains. Let us shift our focus higher. The VIP Club of the Divine. What happens when you rewrite the guest list to the most exclusive club in the universe? Religious controversy remains a massive driver for censorship, especially when texts reimagine sacred figures or historical events. In the Islamic world, Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses caused a global earthquake. The book references a disputed tradition where the Prophet Muhammad was allegedly tricked by the devil into adding pagan verses to the Quran. The fallout was absolute. A 1,989 fatwa, or death warrant, issued by Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, and bans in over 20 countries. Meanwhile, across the theological divide, Christianity has its own list of forbidden texts, fiercely guarding canonical theology. Dan Brown's mystery novel, The Da Vinci Code, suggested Jesus married Mary Magdalene and had a bloodline hidden by the Catholic Church. It was accused of distorting history and subsequently banned in Lebanon. But the ultimate banned books are the ones kicked out of the Bible itself. The Book of Enoch discusses fallen watchers and giants, known as Nephilim. It was excluded from most canons due to its unusual cosmology and detailed angelology. The Gospel of Thomas is a collection of 114 sayings of Jesus that emphasizes inner enlightenment over rituals. It was rejected entirely for its Gnostic themes. The Gospel of Judas flips the ultimate villain narrative, portraying Judas as the only disciple who truly understood Jesus' mission, and depicting his betrayal as an act of divine obedience. Furthermore, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene elevates Mary as a leader with secret knowledge, directly challenging the male-dominated authority of the early church. Moving from the sacred to the domestic, the pristine white living room. Society loves to pretend it lives in a pristine white living room, where no one ever sweats, bleeds, or has a dark thought. Works that explore the extremes of human behavior or challenge traditional gender and sexual norms are frequently subject to suppression. When authors push into extreme content and depravity, the ban hammer falls hard. The Marquis de Sade's 120 Days of Sodom describes 4 wealthy men indulging in 120 days of extreme torture and sexual violence. It was banned in France, the US, and the UK until the 1960s due to its graphic sadism. Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita is narrated by Humbert Humbert, a man obsessed with a 1-2-year-old girl. Authorities in multiple nations deemed it obscene and morally despicable, triggering bans in the 1950s and 60s. William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch delivered a barrage of surreal, disturbing, and absurd short stories involving drug addiction and graphic intimate acts. Unsurprisingly, it faced multiple obscenity trials in the US and outright bans in Australia and Canada. Yet, the threshold for offense is often much lower. Sometimes you don't even need extreme violence to get banned. You just need to threaten societal norms. D.H. Lawrence's Lady, Chatterley's Lover, was banned for its explicit descriptions of an affair between a high-class woman and a gamekeeper. It was seen as a direct insult to England's rigid class structure and societal norms. Bringing this into the modern era, today, Juno Dawson's This Book is Gay, a guide to gender and sexuality for young people, faces similar pushback. It is banned in some regions for its honest discussions on LGBTQ+ history and sex education, which conservatives find uncomfortable. Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale presents Gilead, a world where women are reduced to handmaids for procreation. It is often challenged for its graphic sexual violence and its portrayal of men as abusive and power-hungry. Now, consider the physical threat of knowledge, matches in a fireworks factory. If ideas are sparks, some books are literal matches handed out in a fireworks factory. Books that provide practical knowledge on how to cause harm or manipulate others are often restricted for public safety. Some books are explicit guides to violence and crime. William Powell's The Anarchist Cookbook is a manual for making explosives, weapons, and drugs. Because it has been linked to numerous acts of domestic terrorism, it is considered criminal to possess in the UK if tied to terrorism. Abby Hoffman's Steal This Book is a counterculture guide that openly encourages shoplifting, scamming the system, and using weapons. Naturally, it was banned in Canada, Australia, and many US bookstores. But not all weapons are physical. Other books trade physical explosives for psychological ones. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power outlines tactics for manipulation and social strategy. It is banned in many prison systems worldwide because authorities fear inmates will use its techniques to manipulate staff or other prisoners. Then there's the Little Red School Book, aimed at children. It encouraged questioning adult authority and discussed taboo subjects like substances and power dynamics. The result? Banned in multiple European countries and Australia. Which brings us to the ultimate paradox, the funhouse mirror of truth. Are you still paying attention? Good, because the most ironic censorship happens when society bans the very books that warn them about censorship. Dystopian literature often faces bans because it critiques the very mechanisms of social control used by censors. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World envisions a future where humans are mass-produced and kept happy with a drug called soma. It was banned for explicit themes, rejection of religion and family, and perceived promotion of inappropriate adult themes. Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 describes a society where firemen burn books to prevent people from thinking. In a stunning display of irony, it is banned in many schools and libraries for its criticism of censorship and the challenge it poses to authority. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five is an anti-war story featuring the bombing of Dresden. It was banned during the Cold War for its perceived hippie, anti-war sentiment and its blend of dark humor and existential dread. Beyond fiction, reality itself becomes a target. Beyond dystopia, historical and sociological literature frequently gets shoved out of sight because of the uncomfortable realities of identity and race. Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man explores racial identity and social invisibility in the 1950s. Its raw and honest depictions of discrimination and violence were seen as too provocative for the era, leading schools to expel it from libraries. Alice Walker's The Color Purple follows the life of an abused black woman in the 1930s. It remains contested today due to its depictions of sexual abuse, same-sex relationships, and brutal portrayals of men. Then we enter the realm of the absurd. And then there are the outright censorship curiosities. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was banned in the US in the 1960s for allegedly promoting drug culture through the caterpillar and mushroom. Decades earlier, it was banned in Hunan, China, in 1931, because officials believed putting animals on the same level as humans was disastrous. Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree has been criticized for portraying a one-sided and toxic relationship where the tree gives everything until it is a stump, which some see as reinforcing misogynistic themes of female self-sacrifice. Finally, Anthony Schaefer's 2010 memoir, Operation Dark Heart, detailed intelligence work in Afghanistan. The Department of Defense simply bought and destroyed 9,500 copies of the first edition to prevent the release of perceived classified information. To conclude this journey, trying to ban a book is like trying to hold back the ocean with a chain-link fence. The water always gets through, and usually, the fence just ends up drawing more attention to the tide. You've just inhaled the forbidden history of global literature. Your brain is now officially a hazard to fragile power structures everywhere.